The sun hung low over the Montana plains, casting gold across the rancher's land. Tom, a weathered man of 40, leaned against his porch rail. His calloused hands gripped a crumpled letter. He'd been alone too long, his ranch a silent empire of dust and cattle. The mail-order bride agency promised a companion. Today, the stagecoach would bring her. His heart thudded with hope and nerves. Tom adjusted his hat, squinting at the horizon. The stagecoach was late. He'd pictured his bride, a sturdy woman, maybe Irish, with a warm smile. The agency's letter described her vaguely, healthy, willing to work. He imagined shared evenings, her laughter filling the empty house. His dog, Rusty, whined at his feet. "Soon, boy," Tom said, patting him. The dust trail of the coach finally appeared. The stagecoach rattled to a stop, kicking up clouds of dirt. Tom straightened, smoothing his worn jacket. The driver hopped down, tipping his hat. "Got your delivery, Mr. Harlan." The door creaked open, and a small figure stepped out. Not the broad-shouldered woman he'd imagined, but a delicate Chinese woman in a silk dress. Her eyes darted, confused. She clutched a small bag, silent. Tom's brow furrowed. This wasn't right. The woman looked fragile, out of place against the rugged landscape. She bowed slightly, her dark hair pinned neatly. "You, my bride?" Tom asked, voice gruff. She tilted her head, uncomprehending. The driver shrugged. "Name's Mei Ling. Agency sent her. Good luck." He climbed back onto the coach, leaving them in awkward silence. Tom's dream crumbled. Mei Ling's eyes scanned the vast ranch, wide with uncertainty. Tom gestured toward the house, trying to smile. She followed, steps hesitant. Inside, the sparse kitchen smelled of coffee and leather. He offered a chair, but she stood, clutching her bag tighter. No words passed between them. Tom rubbed his neck, frustrated. How could they build a life if she didn't speak English? Days passed in strained quiet. Mei Ling moved like a shadow, tidying the house with precision. Tom watched her, torn between resentment and curiosity. She wasn't what he'd ordered, but her hands were quick, her eyes sharp. At night, she sat by the fire, stitching cloth from her bag. Tom tried teaching her words, table, spoon, but her tongue stumbled. Still, she listened, nodding intently. One morning, Tom found breakfast waiting, eggs and strange, fragrant rice. Mei Ling stood back, watching him eat. The food was foreign but good. He nodded, and her lips curved slightly. It was their first shared moment. Outside, she followed him to the barn, mimicking his chores. Her small hands struggled with the pitchfork, but she didn't quit. Tom's irritation softened. She was trying. The townsfolk whispered when Tom brought Mei Ling to market. A Chinese bride, they scoffed. Tom's jaw tightened, but Mei Ling walked tall, ignoring their stares. She pointed at apples, mimicking their name. "Apple," she said, and Tom grinned despite himself. Back home, she planted seeds from her bag, strange herbs. Tom wondered what they'd grow, what she carried from her world. A storm hit one night, wind howling through the plains. Cattle broke free, and Tom rushed out, shouting for Mei Ling to stay inside. She didn't. In the rain, she helped herd the spooked animals, her silk dress soaked and torn. Tom saw her grit, her strength. Later, by the fire, he draped a blanket over her shoulders. Her shy smile warmed him more than the flames. Words weren't needed. Mei Ling's herbs sprouted, green and unfamiliar. She cooked with them, filling the house with new smells. Tom taught her to ride, steadying her on his old mare. Her laughter, soft and rare, echoed across the fields. He began to see her not as a mistake but as a partner. She learned, son, horse, home. Each word was a bridge between them, fragile but growing stronger every day. One evening, Mei Ling showed Tom a faded photograph from her bag, a family, stern-faced, in foreign clothes. She pointed, eyes glistening, and said, "Home." Tom understood. She'd left everything behind, just as he'd longed for change. He touched her hand, rough against her soft skin. "This home now," he said. She nodded, and for the first time, they sat together in comfortable silence. Winter came, blanketing the ranch in snow. Mei Ling sewed curtains, brightening the house. Tom carved a small horse for her, a gift. Her eyes lit up, and she hugged it close. They worked side by side, herding cattle, fixing fences. She learned more words, stringing them into halting sentences. Tom found himself talking more, sharing stories of his lonely years. She listened, always. Spring brought new calves and Mei Ling's thriving garden. She taught Tom to roll dough for dumplings, her hands guiding his. He laughed at his clumsy attempts, and she giggled, a sound that filled the house. The agency's mistake no longer mattered. Mei Ling wasn't what he'd expected, but she was what he needed. Their bond grew, rooted in small moments, shared work, quiet nights, mutual respect. One night, under a starlit sky, Tom took Mei Ling's hand. "Stay," he said simply. She understood, her eyes soft. "Stay," she repeated, her accent thick but sure. They weren't the couple he'd imagined, but they were real. The ranch, once silent, hummed with life. Mei Ling wasn't just a bride, she was his partner, his home. The loner rancher was no longer alone. The next summer, Mei Ling's English improved. She told Tom of her village, her journey across the sea. He shared tales of his father's ranch, his dreams. They planned a bigger garden, more cattle. The townsfolk stopped whispering, seeing her strength. Mei Ling and Tom became a team, their differences a strength. The agency's error had become their fortune, a life built on trust and time. Years later, the ranch thrived. Mei Ling's herbs sold at market, her dumplings a town favorite. Tom built a new barn, her name carved above the door. They sat on the porch, watching sunsets, Rusty's successor at their feet. Words flowed easily now, but their silences spoke louder. The mail-order mistake had woven their lives together, stronger than any plan. Love had grown where none was expected. Mei Ling wrote to her family, describing her new life. Tom helped, his handwriting steady beside hers. They sent money, promising a visit someday. The ranch was their world, but they dreamed of seeing hers. Each season brought new challenges, but they faced them together. The house, once empty, was full of laughter, warmth, and the scent of her cooking. It was home. One day, a letter arrived from the agency, apologizing for the mix-up. Tom and Mei Ling laughed, tossing it into the fire. They didn't need apologies. The mistake had given them something better than their plans. Mei Ling's hand rested on Tom's, her wedding band glinting. The rancher and his unexpected bride had built a life, not from words, but from shared work, quiet moments, and unspoken love. The townsfolk now greeted Mei Ling warmly, asking for her recipes. She taught a few women to grow her herbs, sharing her knowledge. Tom swelled with pride, seeing her belong. They hosted a barn dance, Mei Ling's dumplings the star. Laughter filled the night, and Tom realized the ranch was no longer just his, it was theirs. The loner had found his place, thanks to her. Mei Ling learned to play Tom's old guitar, her fingers stumbling but determined. He sang off-key, and they laughed until tears fell. The ranch felt alive, its silence banished. They planned a trip to the coast, a dream they'd shared. Mei Ling wanted to see the ocean again, and Tom wanted her to smile. Their life was simple but full, built on moments they hadn't planned but cherished. One evening, Mei Ling cooked a feast for their anniversary. Tom gave her a locket, her photograph inside. She cried, hugging him tightly. They danced in the kitchen, no music needed. The ranch, once a lonely outpost, was now a home. Their love wasn't what the agency promised, but it was real, forged in patience and care. Tom knew he'd never trade it for the bride he'd imagined. The next spring, Mei Ling's garden bloomed brighter than ever. She taught Tom her language, a few words at a time. He stumbled, but she smiled, patient. They worked the fields, her herbs now a town staple. The ranch was a partnership, their hands joined in every task. Tom looked at her one day, her face glowing in the sun, and knew she was his world. The agency's error was their miracle. A neighbor's boy came to learn ranching, watching Tom and Mei Ling with awe. They taught him together, her English now clear, his patience endless. The boy called them a team, and they smiled. The ranch was more than land, it was a legacy. Mei Ling's herbs, Tom's cattle, their shared life wove a story the town would tell for years. The loner and his bride had built something lasting. One night, a storm reminded them of their first. They worked side by side, saving the herd. Exhausted, they sat by the fire, her head on his shoulder. "Good life," Mei Ling said, her voice soft. Tom nodded, his heart full. The ranch was their haven, its challenges their bond. They didn't need words to know they'd chosen each other, mistake or not. Their love was their home. The town threw a fair, and Mei Ling's stall sold out of herbs. Tom beamed, helping her pack. They danced under lanterns, her silk dress swaying. The townsfolk saw them not as strangers but as family. The rancher and his bride were the heart of the community, their story a testament to chance and resilience. Tom held her close, grateful for the life they'd built from an unexpected start. Years passed, and gray touched their hair. The ranch grew, their love deeper. Mei Ling's English was fluent, but they still spoke in glances. They sat on the porch, watching stars, her hand in his. The agency was long forgotten, its mistake their blessing. The ranch was their world, its fields and fences a map of their journey. They'd turned a stranger's arrival into a lifetime of love. One day, a young couple visited, seeking advice. Mei Ling shared her herbs, Tom his wisdom. They told their story, how a mix-up became a marriage. The couple left inspired, and Tom squeezed Mei Ling's hand. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. The ranch stood strong, its heart their partnership. A loner no more, Tom knew he'd found his home in her. As the sun set, Tom and Mei Ling walked the fields. Her garden thrived, his cattle grazed. They paused, looking at the house glowing with light. No words were needed, just their shared silence. The mail-order bride who wasn't what he'd expected had become everything he wanted. Their life, born from chance, was a story of love, resilience, and a ranch that held their hearts forever.